Okay, so this is my 30-gallon sump. Now you'll notice that the sump is only around halfway full. The reason we do that with sumps is so that if you get any backflow or siphoning from the main display, your sump's got to be able to handle that volume of water. Now I think the bigger the sump you can manage to get on your system, the better, because there's no point having a huge tank and a tiny sump, because the benefits of it, if you're going to say run Cheeto in it for nutrient export, or if you're going to be using it as an addition for extra water volume, if you've got a tiny sump, it's not going to really be worth the hassle or the expense to add it onto it. So I think this one's just the right size for my tank. So the display is actually 100-gallon cube, and this full volume is 30 gallons. So the thicker pipe there is a drain from the aquarium, and the thinner pipe is the return hose which shoots back up to the tank. That's a filter sock holder. I'm not running a filter sock at this very moment. If a tank isn't that bitty or detritus flowing around, then I don't tend to run it, because I just believe that even though you're taking out the nutrients from the water and the detritus and it's in the sock, it's still going to linger. So if you're not changing them very regularly, if I'm not around, I machine wash the socks a couple of times a week. Then if it's not needed, then I won't use it. Plus my tank's bare bottom, so I can suck a lot of the waste out anyway that I can see. Now after the first baffle is my skimmer, and it's been one of the best skimmers I've ever owned. This BubbleMagus skimmer. It's enough to spend, I think, on a skimmer. I think I got it for about 200 quid. It's a C6, and it just gets out some real licorice coloured ski mate, which is almost coming up to need an emptying. Now it's really important when I turn my return pump off to do water changes through my Apex that I switch this off, because a few times what happens is when the water level rises in the sump, it knocks off the balance of, it will knock off the balance of any skimmer, because they're sensitive to stable water level, which is why it's good to have a top off, which is this equipment over here. So I have to make sure I turn it off and remember to turn it off, otherwise it'll just overflow back into the tank and it really gets on my nerves. But I've only managed to make that mistake a couple of times. I'll probably eventually set up a program on the Apex so that every time I turn my return pump off, the skimmer will turn off automatically as well, but I'm just lazy. Now this is my Rowaphos in here in this reactor. It's a D&D reactor. So there's water being taken from this pump down here up the green tube into the reactor at the top, and it makes a turbulent movement in the reactor where the Rowaphos keeps turning over. It needs to be moving at all times to keep it from taking out the phosphate in the water. It's active in that way when it's moving, and this tube here sends it back down into the tank. And then my Jebao controllable pump, which is the blue one there, that will send the water from the reactor back up to the main display as well. So I replace the GFO in there every few weeks really. I check the phosphate level coming out of the reactor and also in the tank. So if the water coming out of the reactor is lower than what's in the tank, then you can tell that your GFO is still active and working. If they're the same level, then it's a good sign that the GFO needs changing. Now this is by far probably the best bit of kit I've bought so far for this tank. This is the Aqua Medic refill system. It's only 100 quid. That's a tube that sends the water into the tank, and these are the really accurate, well made sensors that you get with it. That one at the bottom there tells you when the water levels change slightly, and that one there is if you get an overflow, it switches it off. It's German parts and it's really excellent made. And also it keeps your salinity nice and level, which I run at 35. So that's that section. Now over here I used to have some live rock rubble. Pros and cons to live rock rubble really. Some people love it, increases your nitrate reduction because it adds to the amount you've got in your main display. Some people call them nitrate factories, which means that detritus can build up in the rubble, but I just think it depends a lot on your flow and what's working through it and how much of it you put in. I might put some in there again. I ended up moving a lot of it to a display to get this kind of tower effect that I've got here, which I made out of dry rock outside the tank and put putty together. Some people run a deep sand bed. That's also good for nitrate reduction. Again, you'll hear many different things said about that. Some people say they're great, some people say that you're just building up waste. I ain't got nothing against deep sand beds in a sump. It's just a case of making sure that it doesn't get over the baffles and into the pumps, etc. Which with my tank I'd have to kind of put a piece of mesh net here. Some people do nutrient export by having a light like that. This is like an LED stick-on light I got from Wilkinson's for a couple of quid. You can get them for a couple of quid if you want one for your sump. Just battery powered that I pop in there, switch on when I need it. Now you can use a light like that to grow Cheeto, which is like a microalgae which you can use to soak up your nitrate. As the Cheeto grows, your nitrate will reduce because it will be growing the microalgae. Again, some people think it's just a case of you've still got nitrate in your system, it's just going into the Cheeto. And they also see Cheeto as a bit of a detritus trap. I know the aim of the game is to keep the sump as pure as possible, that's what I do. But again, at some point I might run some Cheeto, I don't know. Now, over this side, sorry if the camera keeps going blurry, is my electrics. Now I've got it in a cupboard at the sides. If I turn the light on my phone, might be able to see a little bit better. There we go. Oh, it's gone off. Bear with me. Okay, so there's my RO container, which shoots back round fresh water with the tubes I've shown you. And there's the Apex modules. The one in the middle at the top is the main Aquabus module. The one on the right is for WXM, which is a wave control. On the far left is the vortech controller, which I don't touch because the WXM's controlling that through the Apex. Down there is my plug sockets, the energy bar they call it. That's the refill system on the left. And far right is my controllable Jebao, which I just leave on full. And I've got that in a nice little cupboard, which I've done in the same colour as the actual tank cabinet. And up there is my, on the right hand side you see there is the LCD display for my Apex. There's the auto feeder, which is pretty good. The build quality ain't that great on it, but it does the job. You can only use dry food, but when you're not around, it sends out food into the aquarium. And there's my Kessil lights. It's a view from the top. And there we go. I've done a few videos on what my display tank looks like, so I just wanted to show a sump because I don't think enough people do it. So thanks for watching.